Hello, how are you? How was the day so far? All right, I have a little talk for you. There are some lessons from the first 9 months in my new team. I recently changed the job, and it's a series of tiny rules or maybe principles that you can always keep in your mind. And basically, it's a result of, a lot of iterations and thinking or overthinking while we're doing our design system work every day. But before that, who am I? I already got a really nice introduction, but then again, I've been a digital designer for the past 15 years. I really enjoyed it. I found myself along the way enjoying enabling collaboration, or as I like to call me, like the locker room captain of a design organization. And yeah, sometimes I'm a pain in the ass, but not because of the design system. I'm not that kind of stereotype that you can read on LinkedIn, you know, the design system person that is squared and everything. Currently I'm at Wolt. Probably you know them, one of the highest rated apps about delivery and grocery. We overseeing everything in the company, so from the consumer app, the merchant app, to the fantastic courier app. And before that, I started my design system journey 7, 8 years ago. Back in the days, it was all about material design, modular UI kits. And even before that, this is where my education background comes from, editorial design systems, which is still today probably the most enjoyable part of my career. Let me start with a little bit of context. So again, I joined Wolt a little bit over 2 years ago, and the premise, the context was, okay, we need to create a design system from scratch. That was the job description, right? And how we shook our hands when I signed the contract. And as you know, for the past 10 years, a lot of amazing companies finally understood, or they really got the return on investment of design systems. You saw these nice products, open source documentations that popped out on the internet, and everybody wants that. Every company wants to do that because once again, the advantages are there. We're getting velocity, we keep the same quality, we create ghost employees, as somebody says, and basically you can do that. Very simple. But probably you know that not all the organizations are the same, and sometimes maybe a company says like, oh yeah, we can just do that, the same design system of Shopify, Spotify, whatever, with less resources, or maybe part-time. We can assign a part-time team to that. Or we can, even worse, hire an external agency to that. Or maybe, we can still do design systems while we are pivoting to something else, right? Well, this is the result, I guess. Big graveyard of design systems that they started and then abandoned, and then maybe people leave that as they are, or maybe the quality is not there, or maybe they're completely not get the traction that people expected with the rest of the organization. Except for one detail, design systems don't actually die. They always there. Even the worst design system, the most abandoned design system is still there, still survives, maybe in a corner of Storybook of GitHub. And that's actually the problem that I faced, because there is no such thing as building a design system from scratch anymore. We always jump in medias res, which is a Latin word, a Latin expression that says in the middle of something, right? Probably you recognize the thing when you watch a movie and they start in the middle of it, and then maybe they have some flashbacks, We started in the middle. We are basically very far away from the point that you probably you read on LinkedIn posts or Medium articles when they say, oh yeah, here is the fantastic way to build a new color palette or building a new component library. You're starting from scratch. Those resources are a little bit outdated at this point because maybe unless you're building your company from scratch yourself, you're finding a company. Almost 100% of the companies at this point, they have already a sort of design system in it. And that's where I reached my conclusion, my overthinking. Design system work is not a journey anymore. It's not about going from point A to point B anymore. It's a revolving orbit. It's a loop. It's like something that is always spinning. And you know, like, I don't know if you're passionate about astronomy, but yeah, like a satellite, design systems sometimes are very far from their motherland or their planet. Sometimes they are approaching the planet, sometimes they are moving away, sometimes they are very close. And yeah, then again, the orbit and the satellite is your team, and the product, the organization, is the planet. And if you do well your job, or the best design systems in the world right now are the ones that actually influence the product. Maybe even just for a brief moment in history, you know, 6 months, a year, maybe less, design system can actually influence the product, just like, you know, the moon influences our moods and the tidal waves and make us werewolves, I don't know. But you start from here. You start in the void, in space. You don't know where you're going, and you're completely lost. So what? The job is about landing, approaching the satellite with your team, and try to get one of those docking maneuver and ready to adjust the trajectory or changing the trajectory of that satellite, improvising any moment. Just like the movie Armageddon. I think some of you saw that. So you buckle up, and you're ready for your journey to this crazy asteroid or crazy satellites floating in space, and you need some maneuvers to adjust the trajectory. And here's my 3 ones. And let's remember, you are there, and you're on a space object that is definitely bigger than you, and you may feel powerless sometimes, but this is another story. First maneuver, the understanding maneuver. Once again, we have all these fancy organizations, and I think we internalized, all the job that they do to scale and changing brands. And yeah, once again, I think there are a lot of great resources that we can just steal from them easily. Or a lot of UI kits, a lot of materials that we can just, they did it that way, I can do my way. I can just reapplying, reusing what they are providing. Same with frameworks and contribution models, processes. Oh yeah, they totally figure it out. So I will just reusing that. But first of all, every company is different. Probably you know that. You cannot just copy-paste processes because of culture, because of other things. So you basically don't have a plan. You don't have a strategy. Because it's very difficult to reusing something without a clear objective, a clear goal. So I'm going to say something controversial here, but our approach, our learning on the field was to not have any strategy, not have any plan, but focusing on short-term, adaptable wins and projects, and just forget sharing, okay, in 2 years, design system is going to be there, and we're going to have a distributed model with 300 engineers working under us. You don't know, because, as I said, the object is moving, you're on this satellite, you don't have full control of it. But while you're working on this very short-term tactics and problems, like, OK, let's figure it out icons, let's figure it out tokens, let's figure it out this. Like, you get those short wins to demonstrate the efficiency and the effectiveness of the design system. You need to know what's on the horizon, what's on the other side of the black hole. And once again, every company is different, so every company has a different horizon. So maybe a company is heading towards a full tech refactoring or a new market vertical. They want to launch a completely new product for Vision Pro or whatever. Or maybe they're going to merge and acquire some other company. Every single problem requires a different approach from design system perspective. So a tech refactoring maybe needs that you need to look into the engineering part and the infrastructure part of the design system. Or a new market means that you need to understand how to scale the design system with new stuff. Or, OK, they're merging new brands, so we definitely need to have a multi-brand design system there, right? But this doesn't change the way you approach to solving the problem. This is a very easy template that I started to use, like sharing a very simple, a very single format to keep sharing. We want to solve this problem by this date. These are the obstacles that are on our way. We will overcome this problem doing this and that. And when it's done, people will see this, will feel this way, and this is the future. Then again, this is a very simple project brief, I would say, that every time you write for every single short tactical problem that you're solving, you remind about the goal and you work in reverse. So you're like, oh, that's the goal. OK, I'm going to fix this problem first. And I'm going to write this project brief in this very simple way. There is no building from scratch. Once again, yeah, let's build a new component from scratch, and that's it. See you in 3 months, because we have work to do. That's not going to work. And just to connect to our job at Wolt, the example that I made before wasn't that far from reality. The need of actually going multi-branding or just fixing the scale and the technology infrastructure, all those 3 examples that I showed in the previous slide, they were all in one because we needed to tokenize the app and we needed to solve the questions about dozens of designers asking, like, where I can find this icon and how can I reuse this? Like, all the questions all at once. But once again, we splitted the main goal and the long-term thing into smaller problems, and we started to work on each one of those things individually. The second maneuver is about building. You probably know these logos. Cross-platforming is very hard, and building a design system for different platforms, it's a pain in the ass. We know that. And especially because we have that muscle in our brain that says, oh, this is the right process, right? We're going to design it, then we're going to develop it, then we're going to implement it into a product. That's not true. The reality is, it looks a little bit more like this, right? It's all over the place. You start working on something, then you're going to implement web. 6 months later, Android needs that thing, but you need to redesign the component a bit. So it's a complete mess. But I realized it, actually not just me, but our entire team, that the needs, and we realized this when we didn't have cross-platforming, but we realized that developers and designers, do they actually have 2 different needs? Developers want to see all the cases, they want to follow naming conventions, they want to stick to their platform, whether it's either just web. They definitely want more flexibility and optionality in a design system. While designers, well, We need more examples. We want to, we want to intuitive. We want to keep the entire design system very easy to use. And it's very hard to finding that balance. Like, from one side, we want to match all the components we do, all the decisions we do with code. From the other side, we want to make something comfortable for the designers in our organization to be used. And this is a little bit controversial maybe here, but I really don't like that all those features or projects or plugins that try to get the full parity between code and Figma, for example. Every example that I saw is basically creating a lot of complexity for us designers in Figma, like components with hundreds of properties and things that are impossible to understand. And then I realized, Designer is a platform. It is something that can be treated alongside with iOS, Android, Flutter, React Native, or whatever. Like, let's just treat it as cross-platforming. It requires a lot of journaling, recording, note-taking, a lot of documentation to map the discrepancies and map the cross-platforming between the two. But at the end of the day, we do this already somehow. Like, we know already that certain components want specific names. So if you want to call banner, but on Android, a component needs to be called popover or alert because developers want to follow those conventions, so be it. If components have different behaviors between desktop, mobile versus Android versus another platform versus design, so be it. And definitely, components will have different statuses along the way because of the timeline that I shared a minute ago, where some components may be more ready than others, and we need to keep track the discrepancy between that component is still in beta, but in design is ready, but in web is actually it's available, and so on and so on. This is a status tracker from the Uber design system, and some components have this ideal scenario, of course, where everything is available. Once again, if you see, Figma is among the others. It's treated at the same level. So Figma is available, is there. The button is called button. In the other things, they're called in a different way. On Android Compose, it's called base button for some reason. You just need to track it. You can be a librarian of the component library, so the words and the terminology sticks here. And you treat design just like the other ones, and you're going to be fine. Because this is it's closer to the reality, right? So something is deprecated, and something is not done, something you will never do an Android server-driven UI version of that component, and so on. So this is more, it's cleaner. So the lesson here is like, it's OK, be comfortable. I missed a comfortable there. But be comfortable with design and code discrepancies. Treat design as a platform. And once again, if I can share the challenge that we got in the real world with Wolt, it was exactly this. Like, we started to converge all the different variations of the components, all the different things from the different products into one centralized library. And of course, we couldn't figure out everything at the same time, right? Oh, we're going to release the component for all the platforms at the same time, and design is going to be fully synced with, oh, wait, with which platform? Should design should follow iOS or Android, or, OK, let's use web. Let's treat the design as a platform. And you should be fine if you track and communicate about it. And then the third maneuver, it's about sharing. This is probably my favorite part. Probably you know these tools, or probably these tools. There are so many different ways to track the documentation and the knowledge of a design system, right? The problem is, from one side, they are meant to be this old-fashioned documentation with long articles and a lot of examples and images, and treated as blogs at this point with a full editorial team or a technical writer behind it. And probably you're working on some of those, like you probably created a very fancy custom website. The problem is, probably you heard this sentence, people don't want to read long articles about how to use a button. And then there is these new small things, probably you heard about it, called AI, which is probably disrupting this entire concept and, from the ground up. And then we learned it pretty fast, of course, out of necessity, with the fact that, okay, we won't have a technical writer, and we won't have a dedicated person full-time updating our documentation and creating nice visuals. So let's use those things as our allies. And instead of writing guidelines and educational content, we started to write contexts and instructions. For humans, maybe tomorrow for LLMs, who knows? I don't have an opinion on that. And these instructions are very, very strict. They are no high level. They don't ask, they're not suggestions. They're very clear, and they create a very sharp set of boundaries. For example, on alignments or spacing or the use of colors, or the fact that if you're designing a control, I don't care if we have already a component, but if you need to design a control component, these are the heights that you need to have. So all the controls are going to have the same height, the same rounded corners. We are very precise with a series of rules that we are writing. And on top of that, we are very clear on the affordance of every single element in our design system. And of course, yes, you can read the definition of affordance, the purpose, and why people are actually using that thing and what they expect from the thing. I always do this, I always make this simple example here. The affordance of a chair is to provide a place to sit. And the affordance of a table is to support items. If you don't document precisely that it's possible actually to sit on the table and you can place an item on the chair, or it's completely, like, strictly not allowed, it's something that you need to write. So skipping everything about specs, about anatomy, about how that component is behaving, or even accessibility at this point, you can skip all that documentation and just providing the set of guidelines of where and how that component is actually intended to use. And we set this kind of answers for every component. We need to declare what are the element main uses, also how it works, but what are the limits, how often this element is used, because AI, especially AI, but also humans, tend to stick to an object and they will reuse it everywhere, but maybe it's not intended to use a primary button in 10 different places on a single page. And also, what are the simplest alternatives? We found ourselves with this very simple set of questions for every single component, writing quickly some bullet points, and feeding the documentation, and people will just try to get it. So a documentation that serves this AI tooling bonanza, but let's remember, it's not the specific use. We're still a lot of humans here. So, but they're also probably just copy-paste whatever you write into a tool, or you don't know how they're going to use it, that documentation. Better stay very simple and very actionable, especially on the purpose of every single intentional choice that you made in the design system. And we ended up with a sort of like even flow chart in our design system, in our documentation, where it's just a matter of asking to the other side, to the designer, what they need to do. If they need to navigate somewhere, okay, where you have to go. There are going to be sub-levels where you have to go. If the answer is no, maybe it's a cheap component is fine. But wait, is the content filtered, or how many options do you have? Oh, maybe it's better a segmented control, but if you have so many options, maybe a segmented control is not enough. Maybe a tab component, a tab navigation component is better. So it's just a back and forth to build that memory, and then again, a designer, a feature team, a product team on what to use. Everything else is, at this point, noise. And by everything else, I mean, they need to remember that the segmented control is 4 pixels, 6 pixels. This is something that all these gaps will be filled by something else. To recap, first maneuver, understand where you are, focus on the tacticals, and I may add, like, don't forget the bigger scope of the business. Second maneuver is embrace cross-platforming and treat design as one of those platforms. So you're gonna your future self probably is gonna thank you later. And maneuver number 3, prepare your guidance and governance to be AI first, and to do that, stay strict to instructions and contexts. And these are probably the maneuver that will get you through the planet product, and you will be able to approach that orbit. Thank you so much.
Francesco, thank you very much for your presentation. And now it's time for Q&A. Do we have some questions from audience, maybe, somewhere? I don't see. OK, there is one.
Hi, thanks for your lecture. I have one question because I'm working in an agency, and you mentioned that it is one of the threats if you rely on an agency, if you're building a product, and then usually when someone comes with a product which is early, they want to set at least first version or second version of the design system. So what would be the tips that you would have for the agency, and how we can build effective and good systems that can scale later on?
Thanks. And by the way, I haven't said threat. That's but to rephrase, it's not about the results. It's about the type of collaboration, right? So a company that's open a contract for 6 months, and they expect in 6 months just throw in as much design system things as possible. That usually leads to, OK, thanks for that, bye, and then they keep it, and then they are not going to use it. As a suggestion, I saw some successful examples. One of that is in Italy, by the way. They're doing an exceptional job on treating differently the way of working that they establish with the partners, and let them understand that it's a multi-year job, and of course it's expensive, but it's something very important to settle on first. And regardless agency work or company work, I did the same also at Wolt. First thing I did when I joined, it was sitting with the CPO, sitting with the big bosses that pay my salary, and say, like, do not expect a full design system, a mature design system that influences everything. a full, let's say, effective design system is a 18-month job, no less, no more. You can, of course, split in the atom and say, like, the first 4 months is going to be auditing and try to clean up. Then the second step, the first 4 or 5 months is going to be about elevating the quality, and then we eventually reach maturity. My suggestion is do exactly that from the external point of view, from the agency point of view. Still the same thing, like be clear on, okay, I can create a library in 3 weeks at this point, even using one of the AI tool, you know that. If you're not willing to actually if you're not follow up, you're wasting your money. So, you can even position yourself like, I'm doing a favor telling you this, because you're just wasting time and money.
Okay, the next question.
Hi, thanks for the talk. My name is Bharat. I work for a company in Austria where we don't have a dedicated design systems team, but our product design team is also taking care of the design system, which is actually a multi-branded tokenized design system that caters to a different portfolio of products. I was really curious about understanding how you set up development teams in order to set them up for success in terms of continuously developing these components and ensuring that they are communicating effectively and also ensuring influence of design in their process. So how have you set up these development teams to work together, or let's say build this whole design system that you have?
Thanks so much. Great question, actually. It was a bit of a roller coaster. And once again, I go back to one of the first slides that says every company is different. I was coming from another company that was very strict on Jira boards and super precise on bureaucracy. We're going to have like stand-ups every day and planning quarterly and everything. And then jumping on in another company that is more like, we're all senior, we know what you have to do. Let's, we can just pointing where we have to go and we are going to do it. And we'll also fill in the gaps. You don't need to provide every single thing in design. We have some design knowledge. We can. So it took a bit on socializing better and understand what's your audience and adapting your style. So I would say that's the main thing. Probably something obvious, of course. But on top of that, especially when it comes to engineering, it's very important to create a compromise that don't expose engineers to the craziness, the messiness of the design process. Show them like what's already definitive, show them what's already done, and of course they're going to have some opinions, but avoid the back and forth of like, oh yeah, we're exploring this button, we're exploring this thing. Like, show the definitive thing in a structured way. We created so many frameworks and processes, for example, we created this component outline, which is basically they know exactly where to grab the information for specs of a component. In that way, they were happy because they were just creating this components like a factory, like just don't repeat, because it was a predictable process. So yeah, maybe bottom of the line is less whiteboarding, more documenting, like something that is very sharp and 90% done. Yeah.
Thank you. Do we have another question? Oh yeah, there is the next one.
Hi, thank you. I work for a really small company. We are about 1.5 product designer. And we have a very old design system that is super messy, but we barely have enough time to work on feature design. I worked with big companies before. I'm used to way more organized design systems, but we just don't have the resources to work focused on design systems. And I find it really hard to know, like I have the skills to improve this, but I just don't have the time. And I wonder if you have any words of advice, or what would you do if you were our, let's say, advisor or consultant? What should we do?
Good question. Two things. It's a two-parts answer. The first part is how big the design team is and how much you can get from other allies, so you don't need to do everything by yourself. If the time is poor, maybe strength in numbers. But the main thing is always to keep in mind, and this is not from me, it's from a quote from a book that I don't remember where, but that says like, even one single button is a library, and even if you save it like one day, and even if with that single button you save it 2 days of work to a feature team, that design system is already effective because it's already saving. Maybe it's not a huge amount of saving, but it's still a saving. So I would say, like, once again, do not look at the whole mess, because otherwise, it's like you go back from vacation and your apartment is a mess because cat furs everywhere, and like, where do I start? Just focus on the things that you have to, that you think or your stakeholders think is the most effective. Once again, it's a new library with just one button and one title. It is typography. It's the illustrations maybe, I don't know, but focus on that thing, packaging a new name, a new fancy name, let's call it design system, and that's the start of the new journey, or let's say the start of the new orbit. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Do we have another question? Oh yeah, there is.
Hi, thank you very much for your talk. I have one question, because you mentioned something that design system plus agencies, external agencies, they usually do not match. And I cannot agree more. I mean, been there, done that, it usually fails. So my question in general is, like, do you think, is it possible to deliver a design system as an external agency? And if yes, what needs to happen to make it as efficient and productive as possible?
Yeah, similar to the question of the other friend there. Yeah, then again, it's a long partnership. It's not a commission. It's not like you're delivering an artifact or a resource, a product. You're delivering a service, which is very long. And sometimes, I'm gonna say this very weird thing. You may join a partnership where the expectation is a design system, and you may end up delivering, I don't know, education classes to their design team, because that's the only thing they need, right? Or maybe whatever. So it has to be clear where you can be the most effective on the, depending on what, once again, what's the long term of the organization, and providing a longer partnership on that. There is no hard stop. Once again, it's not like going from A to B. It's like, okay, let's start this first stage where we're gonna do this because you want to solve this urgent problem. And then we're gonna figure it out. If the problem could be like, yeah, we don't have enough developers, we definitely need like a UI kit to build new features. Okay, you jump in and you just like, I don't know, buy for them a Tailwind or one of those UI kits. It could be anything. The scope is so large, people start putting in the design system umbrella so many different things, even design operations or admin contracts or whatever. So it's so large that we forgot, like, oh, okay, that's the problem we have to solve. What's the problem? What's the solution? So once again, probably could be benefit to position yourself as somebody that works long, yeah, in a long span, or like with chunkier pieces of time, like 3 quarters, 4 quarters, 2 years in one place. But yeah, this is where a lot of agencies are pivoting. Less than that is just consulting and suggesting to a company what to do and where to go. But there is no expectation of like, oh yeah, we will curate for you a documentation website. The moment you step out, the documentation is dead, right? The moment you don't look at it, it's done. So yeah.